Well, welcome to today's rant, and I hope you enjoyed Father's Day yesterday. Whether you are a father or had one, I found out that most people have had a father, and just about as correspondingly amount has had a mother. It's very interesting. But anyway, I had an awesome Father's Day. 3 of my kids came up the night before, spent the day together yesterday, went boating, went out on the local Lake Wiley, stopped the boat in the middle of the lake, went swimming, just had a great time. And it's always interesting to me and appreciative, whenever your kids want to spend any time with you. You treasure it, you value it. Seems unbelievable. When I was a kid, I had a very difficult childhood with my parents, and at times I'll confess to you, I didn't want to be around them much during that time. And about the most boring thing I could have ever considered was sitting down and talking to them, having a conversation with parents or almost any adults at the time. That's pretty much the way I felt, or those are older generations. And so you always appreciate when your kids actually seem to want to spend time with you. Now, they don't want to sit down and talk about a lot of subjects with me and stuff like that. We have pretty big disagreements about a lot of things. And but just wanting to be here, be with you is really appreciated, really special. And, to me, the most important thing, though, on Father's Day is to remember the Father. When I know what it means for my kids to want to spend any time with me, that, how does he feel about his kids? And I found that he values it, and he wants to talk to us. He wants to communicate with us. He wants to communicate with us even more than we want to be communicated with. And usually I think we're like, we want to say our prayers and let him know the stuff we want, and that's about it. When you're a parent, you even appreciate that. That's it's just natural for the way you love your kids. And when they become parents, you understand that they'll understand. And but the Father in heaven, he really deserves more. And I found him to be the most interesting being in the universe by far. There's no question. There's absolutely no question about that. But the fact that he loves us, wants to spend time with us, wants to communicate with us, is just like off the charts amazing. And it's incomprehensible, but he does. So let's just take advantage of it. And we often kind of shy away from him because we feel like, oh, we've had so many failures, we're such sinners. As a parent with your own kids, they can make the biggest mistakes in the world, and you'll stand by them, you'll do all you can to help them. How much more our Father in heaven? Is he greater than any human parent? So I'm just saying, let's make every day the Father's Day. Never forget him. And if we're blessed for honoring our earthly fathers and mothers, the only commandment that has a blessing attached to it, it's a commandment, but it also has a blessing, a promise attached to it, that it will go well with us and we'll have longevity. Our days will remain long on the earth, in the land that the Lord's given to us. How much more, if we honor the Father, will we be blessed? and promise not just longevity, eternal life. What did Jesus say eternal life was? To know the Father. Think about that. So anything that we can, any way that we can touch eternity now and start building that bridge with eternity, it's all revolves around knowing the Father. So anyway, just wanted to mention that, and also that, we have things going on in the world, amazing things, very interesting things, and I know a lot of you just want to hear from me things about the Lord or Christianity or church stuff, Christian stuff. I actually have about several times many more people who want to hear about things going on in the world, on current events and things like that. Far more people. I wish that were reversed. I think the most important thing are the spiritual things, and I give 9/10 of my attention and my time to spiritual things than I do to current events even. But I've been blessed by having a lot of time, so I still am given more time for understanding current events than most people have. I try to use that to learn and then be able to condense for those who don't have the time. Condense down what I'm learning, give it to them in the shortest time possible. But I want to talk about, start to talk about the things in the upcoming elections, the 2020 elections that will be on us very soon. And to do that, because I think the elections are the best time for taking the spiritual temperature of your country, of what's going on in the world, where people are in their maturity, their perception and everything. I mean, it's just illuminating. The elections illuminate so much about us. And so let's take advantage of that. Well, overall, it seems the perception right now, there's not total, but significant and increasing divisions in the country. The schism is getting wider, it seems, by the week. The differences between the right and the left, the Democrats and the Republicans right now, but I think both of those parties are dead and are being essentially kept alive on life support, artificial life support. I think there's an opportunity going forward, and maybe the only remedy to this terrible schism in our country is to go back to what George Washington proposed. And what he stood for and what he believed strongly was that a two-party system would wreck the country and threaten the republic. He didn't believe there should be political parties. He said, we're all Americans. We need to be able to argue any issue within the scope of we're not going to make parties out of our positions. We're going to resolutely debate our differences, but under the understanding we're all one nation. And I think he's right. I think he was completely right about that. And I believe that's going to be the ultimate conclusion of things. Both parties are dead. It's just how long can they be kept alive on life support? And what is the transition going to look like? But basically, looking at the positions of both parties, it seems one is just pro-America, America first. Let's, appreciate our country, love our country, honor our history, honor our founders, and honor, those who built this country, and to respect the rights of the citizens of this country, while the other party, the Democratic Party, the left, seems to be blatantly un-American, to not like the country, not like the USA, not like our history, try to bury it and cover it up and change it, and not to like American citizens. Uh, Go back on any proposals for benefits over the last 10 years, maybe longer, and weigh the benefits proposed for illegals as opposed to the benefits proposed for American citizens. I mean, it's crazy. Many on the left are now proposing like free health care for all illegals. Some states are trying to implement this now, some cities. Well, what about the citizens? What about those who've been here and worked hard and fought hard and everything else for our country? Now, I'm not saying that's a good idea for anybody, but I'm just saying, why is this? Why is it that one party seems overwhelmingly far more for taking care of illegal immigrants than citizens or legal immigrants? That's where we are. How could you prove that statement to be wrong? That's where both sides are on that issue right now. I think the evidence is pretty strong that one of them does look that way. One of them, I don't believe the Democratic Party would have a chance of almost any of their people being elected with just their base. They almost, for any future hope of getting power, staying in power, or keeping what power authority they have, they've got to have these illegal immigrants somehow gain the right to vote. Because citizens are not going to vote for them. Citizens don't think the Democratic Party cares one bit about our rights or anything else. And the way they dilute every vote, want to dilute every vote by giving felons the right to vote again, illegal immigrants the right to vote, and everything else, that dilutes the authority of the citizens' votes. It's taken away from the citizens. So, of course, there's that. I think it's more than a perception. I think it is a reality of where both parties stand in right now, and this is something we've got to decide. And one thing I feel for those who are trying to get into our country illegally. Of course, they're fleeing poverty, they're fleeing devastation, like has happened in Venezuela, and violence and all kinds of other things, and many are trying just to get here and have a better future for themselves and their families. You can have empathy for that, but this is not the way to do it. Absolutely not the way to do it, because it will bring down everybody's right to existence and the freedoms and the benefits that we have here. If you're going to do it with lawlessness, lawlessness is going to prevail. Pretty soon it'll be gangs ruling. And it's pretty much the way it seems in Congress right now. That it's gangs, it's pressuring, it's manipulation, it's threatening. Almost no leadership by just declaring clearly wise positions, wise policy for fixing things and for going forward. That's almost unheard of. It's about manipulation, control, and pressuring in our country. Well, is it any different in the church? Is it any different in almost any church? I've been saying for decades, church politics is even uglier than our national politics. And that's why I think it's happening in our nation. We've got to get our act in order. And all the injustice and perversions of justice and righteousness, which is doing things right, is so prevalent now in our country because it's so prevalent in the church in our country, with notable exceptions. We have great churches and we have great leaders in the church and all. They're just very rare. I think it's very rare to find true shepherds, according to the biblical definition. Shepherds who are not just hirelings, who are professional. A hireling is a professional pastor. It's not a calling, it's a profession. And when trouble comes, they do what hirelings do. They flee and leave the poor people to just be wounded and devoured. But there are some of the great shepherds that maybe we've ever had in our country at the same time. They're just rare. That's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it as always. But consider again, let's make every day the Father's Day. I appreciate having a day in our year to honor fathers. I'm a father now, and I appreciate whatever honor or time my kids want to spend with me. It's deeply meaningful and deeply touching, but let's determine we're going to touch our Father in heaven even more. Thank you for listening to today's rant.